they have someone involved with their freshmen every week and saying, what do you want to be? Where are you going to go to college? And here and every other week, holding the hands of these. Here, I'm going to help you apply to college. You want to be a vet? By your senior year, I'm going to hook you up with an internship at our local vet so that you can get some on-the-job training, and I'm going to help you find the college that will best suit you, and I'm going to help you get there. And then when it's springtime your senior year and you're accepted into that college, I'm going to help you set your class schedule. Because if you're not a morning person, you shouldn't sign up for an 8 o'clock class. And you need help with financial aid, I'm going to help you do that too. So it's so inspiring, something I felt like, I'm first generation college. My parents didn't go to college. And so when it was time for me to get ready to go to college, the only reason I knew how to do anything was because my older sister had went. And so I fumbled my way through. And maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that our high school currently has that kind of a program in place where they have somebody holding these kids saying, what are you going to be and where do you see yourself? And so for me, that was something that I felt very passionate about and came back here thinking, okay, what can we do at our high school to help our students succeed? How can we weave a web so tight that no one can fall through the cracks? So that's what I got from it.
I'm Monica Moreau, and I was also asked to go as a parent. Really, there's no way possible I can recap what we got from this trip. I mean, it was amazing. I'm still trying to process it all myself. I mean, there was so much information in just 2.5 days that there's no way I can just tell you in a minute what we learned. I did myself. I came home more inspired to be a more engaged parent, and not only a more engaged parent, but more engaged in the school, in my children's school, and in our community. I just wrote just a little thing that inspired me the most was the topic of building and rebuilding our community. I mean, that's really where it needs to begin, I feel. One of the important educational experiences that I came away with was the building and rebuilding of community. We can all relate to somewhat being conservative with our time when it involves community events and helping out in our community. I feel coming together for a community-based purpose in planning projects such as improving our community's physical environment, and planning more community events and diving deeper into opportunities for community relationship development. I want to end with a quick quote from one of the Harlem Children's Zone's directors, Rasuri Lewis, and he said, "When your surroundings are beautiful, they suddenly have value. When you value something, it creates hope of something better, and that hope is contagious."
My name is Heidi Wagner, and I am a special ed birth to 5-year-old teacher and early childhood coordinator for our school district. I too was totally grateful for this experience that we were able to have, and a little overwhelmed with what all they do there, because they do a lot. I was super impressed with what they do with what they have. Harlem is hard. It's hard. Those kids, they're born into a hard environment, and it's not easy, even from birth. And so Harlem Children's Zone has really given these people a way out of Harlem and a way, some hope. And that's what was exciting, is to see that. And it gave them a safe learning environment too. You know, those schools, I think there was 179 high schools in New York City, and Harlem Children's Zone is one of those. And it's safe. It's locked tight. Nobody gets in or out without them knowing, and knowing why you're there and what you're there for. These parents are given a hard task to find a safe environment for their children. And Harlan Truman Zone has given them that support. They not only support the students, but they support the families. And that was one big thing. They are there to support you from birth, like they said, to college. And they are, if they have to hold your hand along the way, they will. And they'll come and get you from your house, or they'll come and give the lesson to you at your house because they want to help you and they're invested. And they love them because of that. They form bonds with those people and those teachers because of that. They trust them. They have that pipeline of focus from birth to college, and then they try to get those people back to work for them. So it doesn't stop there. They try and recruit them and keep them their own, and they're proud of that. They're really proud of that, calling them their own. These children are engaged, most of them, from 8 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. They have after-school programs from 4 to 9, some end at 7, but they have opportunities to be safe and out of the environment until 9 o'clock at night, and I thought that was awesome opportunity for them. We aren't Harlem, and we aren't ever going to be Harlem, thank goodness, but we are Othello, and we have so many opportunities here, and that's what's so hopeful to me. We have so much more than them. We do. Our buildings are beautiful. Their buildings were not beautiful. They were hard. They were locked up. We aren't. We're open, and we're accepting of parents and want to help them, and that's hopeful to me. The preschool was super exciting for me to see because that's what I do. And they were engaged and working hard and intentional and rigorous all day long. Those kids went to school from 8 in the morning to 5:45. We don't want that, but we want the engagement and the rigor. Of course, we want to engage our students. And I came back inspired to do more in our preschool and to help my teachers and to educate them more of what the opportunities are out there. I want to end with a quote that the children at the Harlem Children's Zone Preschool, the GEMS program, chant each day. And I love this, and I know Dr. Hurst did too, and so I'm going to read it to you. And they chant it really loud and stomp, stomp, stomp. I'm not going to do that, but I will a little. Our future is bright. We keep our goals in sight. The Promise Academy helps us to see all that we can be. We will go to college. We will succeed. This is our promise. This is our creed. And I thought that was inspiring. So hopefully we can do that here in Othello.
Hi, my name is Melissa Rocha, and I am an instructional coach at Hiawatha. I've been in the district. This is my 16th year here. I had some of the same takeaways that you've already heard about, but one of the key takeaways for me was the importance of building and maintaining relationships between families, the schools, the community. As we sat there the 2.5 days and we learned about each component of the pipeline, the concept of relationships just kept coming up, and it was a part of every conversation that we had. And as I sat there, I came to realize that it was the establishment of these relationships and the ability for all stakeholders, whether it be the community, parents, or teachers, to be able to work together towards the same vision and goal that allowed for there to be successful outcomes for the students in this system.
I'm Paula Lang, and I've been in the district for 31 years. I was equally inspired and overwhelmed, as they said. And when I got on the airplane to come home, my head was ready to burst. And I took up my phone and I started typing this, and when we got the opportunity to share, I'm going to share this tonight. This was written on the plane ride home. I took an acrostic and took whatever it takes, because as we heard that over and over again, whatever it takes. And I thought, whatever it takes, what does that mean? And so I did W, willingness, take the leap, have a vision, think outside the box. H, hope, believe our children, our future, believe in ourselves, believe in our efforts. A, action, do what you need to do what you say you will do, be who you need to be in the process. T, tenacity, put one foot in front of the other, move forward. It doesn't work, evaluate, and keep moving forward. E, everyone, children, guardians, community members, and services and school staff. V, value. Value children, value guardians, value community members, value ourselves, value working together for the betterment of all. E, energy. It will require strength to begin and sustain the efforts. R, riches. Funding, resources, and means. I, interest. Value, change. See the worth in our children, the schools, and the community. Be a part of the change. T, time. The time is now. Be conscientious of time in all areas. T, truth. What is our current reality? Where do we want to be? What can we do to change? A, acceptance of everyone. Unite for the good. What needs to be done? What can I do? What can we do? What will you do? K, kids. It takes a village to give every child all he or she needs to grow and have the opportunities on the journey called life. E, education. It is a job for everyone. Give our children the best opportunities to learn, remove obstacles, put in place support, and build a strong foundation. S, systems. Placement of supports to raise all that are invested in preparing our children for the future. Interwoven, not isolated, whatever it takes.
Sure, I have to follow that. Tell you a couple of things I didn't share. It doesn't matter where the location was for Pete Perez, is always 5 minutes. 5-minute walk. 25 minutes later, in scary parts. It was incredible. Thank you for the opportunity. They kept taking all the things that I wanted to share, going down the list. But I will say that one of the pieces that I recognized in myself that I needed to change was I always looked at whether I was in the classroom or as a principal now, and I just kind of looked at, I can only focus on what happens within these walls and what happens within 7:45 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. And in spite of what might be happening in the neighborhoods or the community or in homes. And what I learned from this experience is that we can't do what we need to do without our community, without our neighborhoods, and without our homes. That it has to be in that real partnership. That was one of the big takeaways for myself. And the other was that what we went and saw wasn't something where we can just, that's what they do and that's what we'll do here in Othello. It was not a plug and play type model. But what we can do is we can adopt the process and the line of thinking that they had. So when they looked through and they said, recognize that there was a barrier or there's a challenge, then they got a team together and said, how do we tackle this in an authentic and real way? And how do we do that with our community? And how do we do that with our parents and with the students? And that's something that we absolutely can do. And I'm confident that we will do in Othello.
I'm Justin Johnson. I'm the interim principal at Wahitas, and I'd also like to say thanks to you guys for giving us the opportunity to go. I was thinking a lot of the same lines of the things that have already been said, but one of the things that really stuck out to me as we went on in the 3 days was every time you'd hear somebody speak, the mission and the vision of the Harlem Children's Zone was so clear that it wasn't like you're listening to a broken record, but they were saying the same things over and over, and they really believed what they were saying, and they had a no excuses attitude that like John was just saying, whatever the barrier is, we're going to find a way through it, and we're going to keep going. And even if, it's taken them, 30 years or something, they've been on this journey, and they'll admit that, every time they tried something, it wasn't perfect right away. They just tried it. Oh, that didn't work. We're going to tweak it a little bit and move on. And with that, everybody kept saying they're really driven in through the data. They're not just going to guess if something's going to work and then give it a year and say, oh, it didn't really work. We're just going to throw that out and try something different. They were constantly looking at the data, and now they're up to like 3 or 4 PhDs in their department. So, it was a great trip, and like John said, everything was a 5-minute walk, and don't ride the subway after dark.
So I'm Jennifer Garza. I'm the principal at Scootney Springs, and I also thank you for the opportunity. What it made me think is I'm a true believer in that we can always do better and we can always do more, and I strive to do that. But this made me even want to do more. It really did inspire me. There was lots of things that made an impact on me, but the biggest thing that made an impact for me was the amount of things that they exposed their children to. We went to the Armory and we saw them doing tennis and gymnastics and basketball and cooking and their after school programs. There's art classes, music classes, robotics, all different types of things on the computer. And there's an intervention component, but an intervention is such a small part of it. In their preschool, it was Spanish and French that they were exposing their kids to. So, we just kept hearing that over and over, and so that just kind of resonated with me. It's not that they went in depth and these kids were marvelous tennis players by the end, but maybe they did tennis for 6 to 8 weeks and they at least got exposed to it. So it just made me really think, what more can we expose our kids to? maybe it's a 6 weeks exposure to some art class that just triggers that interest in them, to show them that there's endless possibilities in our world. And so I came back, and even today at my leadership team meeting, I was just talking to my staff about how can we expose our children to more of the opportunities that are out there for them. And so that was just something that made a big, big impression on me, is we've got to find ways, whether it's our after school programs, somehow during our day, something where we can expose them to the different things that are out there besides football, basketball, and baseball, and wrestling. I mean, not that those aren't important, but I just think that is a huge part of our community, so I never want to take away from that, but there's endless things out there. And so how can we find ways to tweak the things that we're doing so that we can expose them to those things? So that's what stood out for me. Thank you.
So thank you, team. I don't want you to keep standing. So if you can go to the next slide, Pete and I are going to highlight some other things. So one, we talked about family and community engagement. One of the things that was very impressive is that they have a strategy called asset mapping, where they look at non-traditional leaders who are really leaders in their community, and they select different segments of their community, and they find leaders, and they organize around those individuals. And it's really this process where we're listening, or they're listening to the community members, to these leaders. So one of the things I wanted to share with you is, this is some of the things that they do. Tax preparation, preventative programs. They have a Healthy Harlem program also. They have community pride programs. And you can see what was really standing out for me is the number of adults that they serve. Just in 2016, more than 12,000 adults. So they do this annually on a regular basis. I'm going to let Pete talk a little bit about closing the literacy gap.
All right, thank you. When Dr. Hirsch shared the presentation with me over the weekend, I told him I'd just take about 5 minutes. So I'll give you a shot right here. One of the things that we learned about there, and one of the specific reasons for attending, was this idea about baby college and really figuring out what that was about. And what we came to learn over the couple of days that we were there was really, it was more about parents than it was about the child and how you engage with those families. And so in reading about Geoffrey Canada and some of his work, the gentleman that you saw in the video, a piece of the research out there that he's really focused on is this idea that changing the way parents deal with their kids may be the single most important thing we can do to improve a child's cognitive skills. So how do we engage with families so that from 0 to 3, we really get them ready for kinder so they can show up ready to go? I was also looking for Othello context when I was there. And again, in some of the readings, what was reinforced for me in the 30 million word gap text that some of us read was this idea about celebrating bilingualism as a positive aspect. That wasn't a factor that we heard a lot about in Harlem. But one of the other key ideas from that text is that no matter the education level of the parents, nor how proficient they are in English when they are adults, it's always better that parents speak to their child in their native tongue, right? And so how do we celebrate and leverage that locally? And what has to be different in Othello than what's happening in Harlem? Because we have that language component that, I mean, when you think about it as asset mapping, it's not a deficit. It's something that we could leverage and really take advantage of. And so as I thought about curriculum vetting and what baby college might look like in Othello, I think John said it, it's not going to be exactly what they had in Harlem, but there's lots of work to be done around curriculum vetting and saying, you know, what works for us here. I believe in Harlem it was called Touch Points, and they had this 9-week program that they ran. We certainly have the Ready for Kinder components that live in our district already, and the 30 million word gap. So there are ideas and activities out there that we're going to put together and structure in a way for next school year. So we can put some families and some children through our first, we can't call it baby college, but we're going to call it something. The next slide was really about the structure of the children's zone and how they've set it up. And what provided clarity for me around this was a statement that I didn't hear there, but that I think Geoffrey Canada has used it a few times, and it's this unbroken chain of support, that really they make a commitment until the child comes back to the neighborhood and starts working for them. And so that idea about you're only as strong as your weakest link, they don't accept that. They have this attitude about doing whatever it takes. Another piece about Othello context that I appreciated here was we had an opportunity to visit the Promise Academies. And when you walk in those classrooms, you heard Eureka Math, you heard iReady, you saw close reading, you saw foundational skills training, you saw data meetings and these ideas that live in our schools. But I think it was Lindsay that talked about that tight web of support. That was something different. There's a structure there that doesn't allow a kid to fall through any gaps. They don't allow that to happen. And how do they do it? They go door to door. They get their families engaged. They knock on doors. They use incentives to get people to their meetings and to their activities. And they look for this idea about critical mass. So they want to say, if we can get 60% of the people to come and attend, everybody else thinks it's normal because most people are doing it. And so they've done a lot of work for us, lessons learned that we could certainly bring back and think about how we tighten the web here in the Othello School District. And I did want to share a couple takeaways for me specific to the work. I have a mentor, and so when I call her and ask her what she's doing that day, she often says, changing human lives. She believes that about her work. And you saw that in those people when they came and spoke to us, that they really think that that's the seriousness of their work. So the inspiration and motivation that comes from a trip like this, it can't be understated. And certainly these people invested a lot of time and energy, and looking forward to the work as we try to change some lives here in our system.
So one of the things that kept spinning around in my head is how are they funding all of this? Where's all the resources coming from? So the top left, you can see that they have 70% coming from private funding, 30% coming from state and federal government. I think in 1970, that's when they started. And then Jeffrey Canada really started Harlem Children's Zone in '97. And when he started, there was an operating budget of about 75 million, and then it progressed to about 250 million. So I was wondering, how did they do that? How did they raise that amount of money? Well, they went to private funders, and one of the interesting things that they did is they hired a researcher. The researcher's sole purpose was to look across the country and really to identify who is the perfect match for giving and inviting the right people to the table and making sure that they had the capacity to give big money. So one of the interesting conversations is that they needed someone who was fearless, that could really sit down in front of these private funders and ask for millions of dollars, not for $25,000 or $50,000. And what was interesting, they talked about an inside candidate that they had who was a good person, but they did not promote that person to this position because they could only ask for $25,000 or those amounts of money. So they hired an outside person, took a little slack for that, but this was the person that could actually sit down and ask for millions of dollars, that fearless person. And it ran through their nonprofit organization, their foundation. So you can see that's where they're getting their money from, the $250 million that they have, that they're getting on an annual basis. That's where it's coming from. And these billionaires are giving annually to this organization. If you can go to the next slide. So that takes us to our next steps. So one of the things that we've already started doing, and Gina Bullis is already on top of this, we're looking at a nonprofit organization for Othello and making it separate from our district. So we've already started contacting individuals and really making sure that we contact the right individuals so we keep the nonprofit status separate from the district, so we don't get in any trouble there. But that's already starting. So we're already having those conversations, taking the next step. And really what we heard also is having that person that could develop a solid business plan for the foundation. So I'm already doing some work with an individual from Canada. Her name is Karen Friday Field. Talked to her this morning. So she certainly has the knowledge and the skills to develop that business plan, and also to start doing that training that would have to happen with the board of directors for that nonprofit organization. So as you can see, our first step, we're on the way with the conversations. We're looking at establishing a 501c3. And then we'll have to keep planning like our next steps. but we're starting those conversations. Developing a business plan that includes researching, identifying potential people to have big bucks, billionaires, and having a person who is fearless that can have those kind of conversations. Because it is going to take some resources for us to do this for our community, for our kids. And just like everyone said, it's not going to be a cookie cutter model where we take what they're doing in Harlem and just put it down here in Othello. But certainly we're going to plan that way, and we have to have the resources, and we have to start planning that way right now. So we're doing that. So one of the things also that we started doing up in Harlem is we divided into two groups. We had a parent engagement group. We had an early literacy group. One was led by Pete Perez, the other by myself. We just started asking some questions, and these are questions that are common in our organization where we're looking at what is our current reality, what is our ideal state, and then doing a gap analysis. So we started looking at our vision for early literacy and parent engagement. Looking at our current reality, what does the data say? These are questions that are going to continue. So we started the conversations. They need to continue. What are some of the potential obstacles or hindrances that may stand in our way of getting to our ideal state, and some of our next steps? And then we will get to our goal writing specific goals. Once we have that down, then what we'll start doing is inviting more people to the conversation, and we'll start asking them, so what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Give us some feedback, add to it. Expanding the conversation. Pete said it very well. We're instituting this going into next year. And we have a strong belief that this is going to happen. We don't know to what extent our parent engagement is going to look like, or the early literacy, but we are doing it going into next year. So thank you for your time, for allowing us to share. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst, and all community members and staff that were able to attend this amazing trip, is what it sounds like. And I'm extremely excited about the future of our district and bringing these types of programs and replicating what has been done in Harlem in Othello, and just so look forward to that. And I don't know if there's any questions from our board before we move on. Okay, moving on to item B5, Lutacog Elementary Annual Report. And so, Brooke.
All right, we'll make sure this is on. Okay, so we're going to stand here. Is that good for the camera? A little forward. All right. Okay, so my name is Brooke French. I am the interim principal for, where are you guys going? For Lutacog Elementary. We're just going to introduce ourselves.
I'm Tracy Gale. I'm the assistant principal.
And I'm Jen Perez, the instructional coach at Lutacog.
So first of all, we'd love to give a shout out to our Lutacog staff who are watching live, and also for the staff members that could make it here today. All right. So today we actually have the opportunity to present things that Lutacog that we've been doing, so our current reality and our next steps, and we're actually very excited to share this with you. Can you see the slide? I don't know where to stand. All right, so this is John Fisher's The Process of Transition. Have you seen this before? No, okay. So go ahead and take a look at it. So we're gonna come over here. I don't know if this live thing's working. All right. And if I had a laser pointer here, I'd kind of show you where I believe staff and parents are feeling right now with all of the changes. So we have anxiety, happiness, fear, threat, guilt, etc. I know people there that are in fear mode, they're in anger mode, and they're also in happiness mode and gradual acceptance. My personal thoughts are I'm in moving forward, so I'm clear at the end. And I really thought hard about this to see where I was at, and I'm very excited the direction that the district is going. So by the end of the year, I hope that staff and parents are also moving forward. So we're going to take a look at our current reality.
So there are 3 areas of focus. We have school climate, instruction with reading, math, and communication. First, school climate. So currently we are focused on the district vision to create a positive atmosphere for students and staff at Lutacaga. Instruction. Everyday teachers are focused on using research-based strategies for reading, math, and language development, such as turn and talk and the use of manipulatives. I frequently see teachers using similar strategies. This is significant as when teachers across classes and across grade levels use similar techniques, statistically it has a positive impact on student learning overall. Being new to the district, I see many positive teaching strategies such as chants and gestures and the UP method. I am confident these practices will lead to growth in the future. Communication. We are excited about improving communication and strengthening the connection with the central office. We are optimistic about the district office transformation and the potential it has to strengthen teaching and learning. To communicate with teachers and parents, we are sending home a monthly newsletter and we are working directly with the PTA. We also use surveys on Google Forms and learning improvement team meetings to communicate with the staff. That's it? Okay, that's me too. These are our school goals. 4th graders are focused grade level, and that's why they are highlighted in yellow. After meeting with the 4th grade team, we learned they're in transition from paper and pencil practice to online practice. The reason is the state testing is online. How to work online is explicitly taught, repeated and reviewed because of the differences in contrast between paper and pencil practice. And yes, these are realistic goals for the 4th grade team, and they are within reach of our team.
So we want to give you a little closer picture into what's our current reality is in 4th grade. So we wanted to make sure that we could break apart the reading and the math goal for you. So first I'm going to talk about our reading goal. On the left-hand side of the slide, you see some information about decoding, fluency, and accuracy progress. Our students have to be able to read and decode the text before they can understand, which is comprehension. You see that data reflected on the right hand of the slide. So what we've discovered with our English decoding data is that when we began in September, 37.6% of our 4th graders were reaching standard in decoding 4th grade level text. And when we reassessed them again in January, we were at 50% of our students reaching that standard. Of course, at Lutacaga, we assess in both English and Spanish, and so we wanted to report to you our Spanish data as well. In September, our students were reading with only 34% accuracy in Spanish, and now in January, we have 61% of the 4th graders meeting the accuracy goal in Spanish. Now, in order to understand what you read, you have to be able to read it, so that was the left-hand side. The right-hand side of our reading goals helps us reflect and try to predict how our students are going to do on the Smarter Balance assessment. So the 4 colors that you see are reflective of the 4 levels of reporting that come out on the Smarter Balance assessment. We currently are using English weekly passage data to collect that at this time. And this is a compilation of 2 weekly passage assessments, and it indicates to us that 21 of our students are prepared to pass the Smarter Balance assessment in 4th grade. Our goal is to get 41 students or more passing, so we need to increase that, and we have a systematic approach in place to continue collecting that data and reviewing it with our teachers. All right, next we'd like to talk to you about our math data. Math is taught by using Eureka Math at our school. Of course, we've been transitioning to that. It's a similar reporting system that we're using here with trying to reflect or predict how we're going to do on the Smarter Balance assessment. And so the color coding is reflected similar to the reading slide. We are using adjusted end of Eureka module assessments that reflect more of a Smarter Balance style question than what is used in Eureka Math itself. And this is our reporting of our first module and then our second module assessments that the 4th graders have taken thus far. On module 1, we have 39 students, or 40% of them are currently reaching standard and projected to pass the Smarter Balance. On module 2, we gained some students with 42 students, or 48%, prepared to pass. the standards that are reflected in those modules. Today, as we walked around during PLC, we discovered the fourth grade team, of course, going over their Module 3 assessments. Module 3 it's a beast in fourth grade. It's really large and many lessons, and they've broken it apart into smaller data points along the way. And they were just reviewing that end of module assessment today. And so we look forward to continuing to add to our collection of data to help us understand where our students are at.
Thank you, Jen and Tracy. All right, so our next steps and goals, they're the same as our current reality. We're going to focus on school climate, instruction, and communication. So with school climate, after multiple teacher, staff, and LIT meetings, those are meeting with our grade level chairs, a list has been created on how to improve our school climate, and that is the top of our discussions always. With instruction, the focus is on reading, math, and language development, and it's an ongoing daily process. Grade levels have the opportunity to meet weekly with common daily planning periods, and moving forward, we are looking for more opportunities for dual instruction, particularly in Spanish. Our future goals for communication go beyond just staff and parents. We want the central office and school board to feel welcomed and integrated into Othello School District's dual school. Besides classroom walkthroughs, you will be invited to staff meetings, luncheons, events, etc. We're going to go ahead and take a look at our STAMP data that was specifically asked for by our school board.
So as a follow-up to your board visit to our school, which we enjoyed, I was asked to provide the STAMP data from last year. Just as a reminder, I wanted to just remind you that the STAMP data is much like the ELPA 21 assessment that our students take in English. And so it's a way for us to measure student proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in Spanish. I have included some embedded links here so that you guys could get some experience with the STAMP assessment if you so choose. So at the very top of this paper, the blue link where it says take a sample test, if you so choose, you could click on that. Hey, there we go. And you can scroll down and find where it says to take the sample assessment. There it is. And you can choose the language in which you would like to take it and so forth. There's also a link here to help you understand the benchmarks and rubrics scoring guide. So there's a lot that goes into understanding the STAMP assessment data. There's, of course, when you have 4 different areas that you're assessing, then you have 4 different sets of rubrics, and they link together writing and speaking rubrics, and they link together reading and listening rubrics. And so I wanted to provide you with some background as you look into that further. All of the dual language students in third, fourth, and fifth grade took the STAMP assessment last year, and we plan to become more proficient at using this data and helping our Spanish teachers use it to inform their instruction.
Well, in regard to morale, thank you, board, for your recent visit to Ludokaga. This gave the staff, parents, and other stakeholders the opportunity to be heard and valued. Professional development in reading and math instruction and dual language also had a positive effect as it provides teachers with the tools and input they need to improve their practice.
We're going to thank you one more time. Thank you again for coming to Ludokaga School Board and District Office Administration. Thank you for taking the time to visit staff, parents, and students and observe teaching and learning in the classrooms. We appreciate feedback, and we are working hard to make every day a positive day at Ludokaga. Thank you.
Thanks, Brooke and staff. Great job. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, just one question. Being the first year that we had done the STAMP data, I wanted to ask, what was the general feeling from the staff, regards to the results of the STAMP data?
Our general feeling was excitement to see lots of students. As you look, sorry, let me flip to that page that I have. Oh, it's because it's up there. Will you show me the STAMP data again, please, Sandra? Okay, so if we look here and we saw our general feeling was excitement. Like in third grade, for example, on the listening, when you see that many kids up in the 6, 5, and 4, it gave us a lot of reinforcement that some of our strategies are really working, and also indicates in areas that we need to continue working on. For example, the speaking assessment over here, not unlike the ELPA 21, we discovered some testing glitches. If students don't have the microphone correct to their mouth and they aren't speaking clearly into it, lots of them, we were doing a whole group setting. Some kids might be testing on one component while others are testing on another as they progress through, and they were kind of whispering into their microphones, and then it can't be scored. It sounds like gobbledygook, and they couldn't really make a heads or tails of that. And that's something that we've been working on both sides of our program to make sure that those speaking scores really reflect the proficiency that our students are having. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you. And this was testing both Spanish language students and primary English students, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks again. Great presentation. Moving on to item C1, ENDS 3 report. Dr.
Yes, for Board of Directors, what I would like to do is open up the handout that says Strategic Implementation Plan. Just provide for you a context as you're reviewing the ENDS 3 monitoring report. So I shared with you some time ago, and then also this evening, I've been working with Karen Friday Field from the Meridian Corporation. And as you look at this document, you can see what our process is. This is important because as you look at the ENDS report, you won't see any measurable goals attached yet. So when you look at this, you can see right now we're looking at input from family, students, community, and we're starting with the district office staff, principals, and directors. We started having this conversation about ENDS policies and making sure that everything is aligned to our ENDS policies. So this is the process that she's kind of leading us through. The end goal is to really look at all the ENDS policies and to really attach very specific things that we're doing to get to the ENDS policies. Look at our current reality, look at our ideal state, and then start writing measurable goals. Those measurable goals will then be shared with the Board of Directors at our annual retreat. So when you look at the report, you'll see current reality, you'll see ideal state, but you won't see any very specific goals. So I just wanted to give you that context. I wanted to provide, if you go down further in the document, and just kind of go over a couple of things. If you go to page 3, so you can see the conversations are already taking place. You can see on the far left, the whole idea concept is to make sure that we attach the end to the things that will tie to the ends, or the things that will actually get us to the ends. So you can see that there's some things around problem solving, early literacy. You see the global competencies there also. And then, like I said, the idea is to attach these pieces to a very specific ends. As you go down, to page 8. So this is the work that the executive team has done with Karen Friday Field. We've taken all the conversations, we've looked at one in particular, and we just started outlining different things that can go into our strategic plan. So our big thing is, let's see how this stretches across the remainder of the year. It takes us into July, August timeframe. So you can see even around STEM, that's part of our vision. That's part of what's going to take us to our ends also. So there's some planning that's happening right there. Part of central office transformation feeds into that. You can see also early childhood learning, readiness education program. Our HCZ visit is already in there. Things that we're supposed to be doing in March, the designing phase, which is we're right on time. The timeline, you can see April and May and implementation phase. Global competency conversations starting also. So what we really wanted to do is use a structured process to really lay out everything, and then really making sure that we're achieving the ends, more specifically having measurable outcomes tied to those ends. There's a big planning session coming up that will include the directors, myself, executive team, and principals, and we'll be sitting down looking at all of the ends and going through that process I just shared with you, looking at current reality, ideal state, and then really attaching goals there. So that's our first step. So I wanted to provide you with a context, because as you're looking at, I think everything that I've submitted to you this year has really been around current reality, ideal state. Those are actually coming. Another piece I want to just share with you as you're looking at the ends, just for clarification, just to make sure that you capture the essence. If you can go to the ends document, and I'll just walk you through the first portion. So as you look at it, one of the things we're working on also with Karen is just looking at a format, a stronger format to share with community members and the district also. But right now we have interpretations, which will be changed because we'll get interpretations from a number of individuals from the organization. But you can see we've outlined each section by current reality and what each school is doing, and then ideal state. So you can see that we have some things in place, but you can see also we have some items that we need to attend to. But specifically, as you go down and you look at ideal state, so this is the piece I wanted to clarify. The ideal state for financial literacy, you can see what we're doing at each one of the school sites. If you look at the far right column, integrated projects, and to go down from elementary, look at middle school, you'll see the term a deeper dive into integrated projects, and then high school, global pathways. So then go down to the next page where you see the triangle. Now the audience, you can't see that, but for the board, what I wanted to do is just share the essence of this with you, the ideal state. So as we think about global pathways that would be implemented in the district, the conversation has been around 5 global pathways. Visual and performing arts, ag, STEM, human services, business, and finance. So an example of what the ideal state would be for finance is that every student is financially literate. And you could see from elementary, the design or the ideal state is for us to have integrated projects around these global pathways starting early on, and then moving into a deeper dive into middle school, and then that leading to global pathways. So an example, a student in elementary, they would have integrated projects around STEM. They would be exposed to it. And then in middle school, they would do a deeper dive into STEM activities. And then in high school, they would actually feed into a global pathway that's STEM. So the same thing for financial literacy. You see business and finance. So that's the ideal state, that we have it flowing throughout the entire system where our students are getting exposure at an early age. So I wanted to give you a context as you're looking at that so you have a clear picture of what the ideal state is. So what we've done in each one of these categories is broken it down so that you can see what every school is doing in each one of these areas in ENS 3, and then ideal state. Some of the conversations are still to be had, and that's part of our planning process also. And then deliverables also at the retreat. So just wanted to clarify that for the board. So that's what I have for.
Any questions?
I do appreciate where in several areas you actually gave us an idea of not just that, yeah, this is offered, but here's how many students are
exactly
taking advantage of it or able to participate in it. So that really helps to give me a bigger picture.
Yeah.
From that.
Yeah, I have just one question.
Yes, sir.
On page, trying to figure out what page it is, not page numbers, but where it talks about suspension,
Yes.
high school, when it says 47 kids suspensions avoided, what does that mean, or how do we measure that? What's an avoided suspension?
So I think it's
Just so
based
I'm
on
clear.
the conversations that Mr. Kovalenko is having with the students, the critical conversations. I think those are high-risk students, and they would have been the student that would have been suspended had they not had the critical conversation with them. So those were avoided.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Yeah,
Great.
makes perfect sense. Thanks, Dr. Hurst.
Thank
Moving
you.
on to item C2, I'll entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
I have some questions before a motion, if that's all right.
Okay.
Mr. President. So my question is around the asset preservation program, right? I would want to say protection program, but it's preservation or asset preservation report. So I'm going to go to, it's actually under the superintendent report where there's the side-by-side comparison. And just a couple of questions. I just want to kind of get my head wrapped around this. And Gina, I'm assuming you're the person that would
Yes.
ask.
Yeah.
Okay. So I noticed that the gym was added into the Desert Oasis this year. But I actually thought last year that was the district conference center. So could you clarify for me what the district conference center is?
Okay, now that I have a microphone. Well, the district conference center is the Desert Oasis High School gym. I had actually, Orland was here. I don't know where he went, but so hold on a second. So what exactly is your question?
So we have it listed in there. So it is what I was thinking. So we shouldn't have it listed twice, right? We have it as the gym under Desert Oasis, and we have it as a district conference center. But I was a little confused because they were different square
Yeah.
footage.
Well, and so what what I was highlighting for you was the difference in the overall square footage. So in one year it's in there, and the other year it's out. And I'm trying to look at. Oh, I see what you're saying. It looks like it's listed this year and it wasn't last year. Yeah, I'm gonna have to follow up with Orland on that because he's the one that completes the report. So your comment is that it looks like it appears that it's in there twice. Or why is it
If the
listed?
district conference center is the gym, then yeah, we're listing it twice.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure that was it. Because it says it's different years built and different square footage. I thought maybe it was a different building. Okay, so
I'll follow up on that.
all right. The other thing was, I don't know if the rest of the board was curious about this, but I noticed that some of our facilities really dropped a lot from last year, like sometimes almost 20% in there. And I would just wonder what the reasoning for that was, but I know if Orland's not here, they probably can't answer the question. And there was actually a couple that increased in their assessment.
So I do know this year was the first, can I address that? So this is the third year of the asset preservation. The first year that it went in place, Mike Curry was involved in the assessment. Last year, it was a combination of Architects West and Orland because it was also tied into the long-range facility planning work that we had done with CSG. This is the first year that Orland has done the entire process, just him. So I'd say the last 2 years was done more in a partnership with a consultant. And so the scoring is based on his interpretation of our buildings and our systems. And as the facility director, I would agree that he's probably the best person to do it. But also can follow up with him. That's one of the reasons why. Is he having? No. Orland, we have some questions for you. Do you want to come up to the? So Rob, do you want to readdress your question?
Yeah, so Orland, I was asking the first one I was asking, I saw that we added the Desert Oasis gym back in, in this year, and it wasn't there last year. But I was actually thinking last year that that's what the district conference center was. I thought it was just listed differently. So what is the district conference center in this report then? Because they're both in there this year.
Up here,
Yeah,
Orland.
perhaps I didn't realize that, and I just added it in, thinking that it wasn't in. I may have doubled that, I don't know. I'd have to take a look at that. I know, I changed quite a few things. Over the years, we started out with Mike doing this, and the second year, I helped Mike do it. The third year, Ed Champagne did it, and he changed a lot of stuff, more in the line with what I thought it should be. And so this year, I went ahead and took that a little further.
Okay, so this is more just about, yeah, it said last year that it was 80-some%, but really the reality in your mind is that it's not at that level of.
Yes, I would agree with that.
That makes sense.
I think that a lot of the explanations, or a lot of the ratings require an explanation. Otherwise, you can't rate them and go on. And so I think probably Mike trying to get it done.
So you didn't do this with your help then? You weren't
The
part of
first year. The second year, he was kind of guiding me through it, how to do it and whatnot. And then Ed took over, like I say, the next year. And then this year I did it on my own. I did make a lot of changes. And I think that as the years go on, it'll become more and more, what it really is.
More impactful.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely think that something needs to be before we accept this even, we got to make sure our square footage is right so that if the district conference center is the same as the multipurpose gym in Desert Oasis, we need to make that change before we accept it. Huh?
I think I can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So do we need to?
That's the only area.
Accept without.
That's the only area up there highlighted that, because the square footage from 2016 to 2017 is that differential. So we'll just need to go in there and make sure it's not
We'll probably just have to
duplicated.
take one of the two of them out.
Yeah, and there's a difference in the square footage, so that's probably going to have to be looked at as well.
Okay.
I mean, that's a big deal, right? When we're looking at the square footage of our buildings, and even with funding later for facilities, right, Gina?
Yes, they look at this information.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not going to be hard to go figure that out.
What is a percentage where improvements need to be made? Does it drop down to, did we mention 65 last time, or am I thinking of a number?
Let me look at the grid on the memo that Orland did.
The lower the overall score, the more the building needs some work.
Yeah, I don't remember. We did see that there was a specific percentage, because I see
There's some accountability. Is that what you're asking? What's the accountability when our buildings get to a certain
What are
level
we
and we're
gonna-
not doing something about it?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
This doesn't actually give the rank, but a poor or unsatisfactory is where in those ratings. So wherever those percentages fall is where the non-operational or replacement is required.
so fares are still good.
Yes, and right. They don't actually qualify for any kind of state match replacement or funding until based on the age of the facility more than the actual scoring percentage.
It looked like your opinion of our portables was that they weren't in the kind of shape that it was being presented in past years.
That's correct. Yeah, I'm trying to get them to a more fair and reasonable score, even if it takes a lot longer and I got to go write up an explanation on each one.
Sure. Very good. Appreciate that.
And like I say, as the years go on, it'll just be getting better, more homed in.
Yeah.
And then we have to do, I think, what is it, in 2 years, we have to have an outside guy go. So he may have some other ideas as well.
Oh, so you have to have an independent
Yes.
person do it in certain
Yes,
years.
I'm not going to be allowed to do it in a couple of years. After he does it, then I'll be allowed again.
Every 6 years, the asset preservation program by the state requires that every 6 years we use a consultant to come in and complete the the ranking.
And that's a good deal. That way you got more than one perspective.
Right.
Sure.
Okay, so are we going to need to make a motion that tables that one till the next board meeting, then when corrections are made?
Do we have time?
So, yes, because by the end of March is,
Okay.
it's not in the consent agenda, is it? It's in the superintendent report? Oh, okay.
It is.
So, yeah.
Both.
We can probably fix that tomorrow.
You can approve it with the adjustment or whatever.
I mean, to me, the square footage is an important thing. I would say that let's just, since we have time, it's nice to have that opportunity for the next board meeting. I would just suggest we get it dialed in and approve it next meeting. That would be my preference.
So you have a motion?
Yeah, I can. So I move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item
C120.
It would take me a while because I would have read them all. C1-20, approval of the 2017 asset preservation report. I recommend that we put that off until next meeting when the corrections are made.
So a motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve consent agenda with the removal of C1-20 until our next board meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Mike Garza. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. Moving on to superintendent report.
Yes, for the superintendent report, we have, Jenna's going to talk about the first few items, and then Pete's going to talk a little bit about the dual language sibling criteria.
So we've already talked about the asset preservation. The budget development, this was a grid put together for the board to get some meetings scheduled on the board's very busy calendar for a budget workshop as well as community forum later in the year. The yellow dates are special meeting dates, not stuck on those dates, but somewhere around in that timeline. And the other dates are just associated with a regular board meeting. So very flexible. If the board wants to put a workshop right before a board meeting, we can do that. Just looking for something around the middle of April to do an initial board development workshop. Community forum about the middle of June. And a second forum if the board deems that necessary in July once the legislative session has passed. The mid-June one gives us time to be pretty close with the budget, but a lot can happen between the middle of June and the end of June. And so it may be advantageous to have another community forum around the middle of July or the public hearing in July when the budget is actually presented to the board for the first time. We could also include it in that. So just need your feedback
So do you
on
want
what
to
you'd
go down
like.
These dates one by one, Mr.
I
President? or-
have a quick question first. So what specifically, has there been a change in the law, Gina, that drove us doing this differently than we have in the past?
No, there's just a change in our process through greater transparency. I believe based on the feedback last year from the board, just a more of an interest in being educated earlier in the process. And with the interesting dynamics of the current legislative session and things going on, are just making some recommendations to give the board more opportunity to hear the budget process earlier in and I believe we'll have the budget. The plan is to have the budget ready to go as early in July as possible to bring it to the board. And so
Appreciate that.
So the dates she has is for a board workshop on budget development is that April 11th. How does that look for you guys?
I'm open as long as it's after 6:30. I can't do it before that. I have another commitment.
I'm fine with that.
6:30? So, okay, so
Do we expect that to be how long?
What are we thinking?
Gina, about how long will that? 1 hour. So
6:30?
so 6:30 on 411, about an hour. And is that that's not a special, is that a special meeting? Or
It'd be a
board workshop? Okay.
It's a board workshop.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna throw this out here. What would the board feel about, if it's an hour, doing it at 6 o'clock before a board meeting with that?
Oh.
Rather than a different day, would that work for you, Gina, on that?
That's fine. Yes, I just put these in as holding
5:30 If
spots.
you're gonna do that.
Just to make sure.
Well, I mean, if we make it an hour, then, but if it's gonna be, I could adjust my schedule to get here at 6. That's no big deal, but 5:30, I'd rather not.
Just
I'd rather do a
'cause
separate day. Okay.
just for my sanity, I wouldn't want to run up against the end of it and not be done and have to start the board meeting.
Understood.
So keep it on the 11th? Okay,
That works.
so we're good to go. Next date that is offered is June 12th for a board workshop.
That's prior.
That's a
Oh.
regular meeting.
It's prior.
I can do that one.
So this is before, is it an hour before? Is that what you expect?
I placed this in here more as an opportunity, if we're going to do a forum the following week, just to give the board an opportunity to help structure what that forum would look like, question answer, the information that would be presenting as an educational component. So we may want to plan an hour. I don't know that it would take quite an hour.
Okay,
So 6 would be fine then.
so 6 o'clock on June 12th would work for that. And so if you can put that in your calendars, everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Next, the community forum on the 19th. How does that day look for everyone? It's a Monday. And I believe we've started our forums in the past at 6 o'clock or 6:30. So 6 o'clock, good for you guys?
Rather not.
6:30?
Yeah.
Okay, so community forums on the 19th of June at 6:30. And where would you like to have that?
We want to have that here.
Here?
Yes.
Okay.
On the 26th, my thinking would be that I would just have a overview in the board meeting of where we're at with the budget, and we're within days of the legislative session being scheduled, finalized, so I'd be able to give an overview on revenues, expenditures, and some, what do we call, decision packages that would be implemented based on any last minute changes.
How long do you think that will take, Gina?
I'll work it into the allowed 10 or 15 minutes within the board meeting. I can do it in the board meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll do it right in the board meeting.
I was curious about the length of the one you think on the 19th, the community forum. Gina, what would your expectation be?
I think we should plan an hour. I will have like probably a 20 to 30 minute educational PowerPoint. And on the 12th, when we're preparing, there may be segments that board members are comfortable with or would like to be involved in, and then question answer. So that would be my plan.
The next we have July 10th, if needed, for a public forum. Should we wait on that?
It's on the board meeting night, so.
Right, okay.
If you just put it down at 6, I think we could change it later.
Is that okay with everyone else? Okay.
The next two dates are off by a day. I I forgot to update this, so it should be the July 24th and August 14th, so.
Those are board meeting days.
Right.
Yes.
No. Oh, yes,
Yes,
they
they
are.
It's their day
Yeah.
off, yeah.
So that'll just
August
be,
10th.
that's just on providing a timeline for the board.
Great. Any other questions?
So we're just really looking at two special dates outside of our board meetings, and one would be, one or two would be early before the board meeting. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Then also, Gina, can you provide just a brief update on bid on tennis courts?
Oh, yes. So after the last board meeting, I emailed the Architects West and asked that basically the email provided them, said OSD will be resuming the tennis court project at the current high school campus. We're requesting that the project bid be as follows: a base bid including 4 tennis courts and related site work, with alternates for 2 additional courts, an alternate for concession stand, and an alternate for lights. We request that the alternates, let's see, the project should be bid in time for the work to be completed during the summer months 2017, and to contact me with any questions. So currently what they're doing is, if you recall the original bid, there were some pretty lengthy last, kind of late in the bid process addendas. And so they're cleaning up the bid package and reworking. So they've got some time between, I anticipate between now and May is when the bid docs will go out. It's usually a 3 to 4 week turnaround before we get bids. But in the bid docs, it'll be required that whoever's bidding, that they're going to be able to get the courts done by the end of the summer. So.
Questions?
And then Pete's going to talk a little bit about the language.
Yeah, this was just a request for me. I wasn't able to attend the last board meeting, and there was a analysis sheet submitted related to the sibling entry process, and so I just wanted to get a nod and a shake that we were okay with the work as submitted, and then I could inform the team as they prepare for Kinder Roundup. All right, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item C4, director discussions, and we'll begin the legislative report. Director Simmons, if there's any changes.
There is, but you guys all heard about it. Dr. Hurst stole my thunder. So I was kind of looking at it and questioning, what do I report on it? I think we're getting closer. We're going to actually start getting some bills that start to get approved. But it was a pretty big one just recently approved by the House and the Senate. That it's not a bill. It's the delay of the levy reduction for another year. So any impact that might have had on our district, that will be put off for a year, and hopefully will be a non-issue because there will be answers actually and plans for fully funding the education. It has not been yet signed by the governor as of when I checked earlier today, and I think he has until Wednesday to do it. So it's not a done deal, but I'll be surprised if he didn't sign it. As I look through, I see a lot of bills that are fully through the House now and in the Senate. But because they haven't made it through the Senate yet, I'm not going to comment on them yet.
Okay. Moving on to student rep report.
Okay. Hold on, I gotta wake up a little bit. Just kidding. So, we've had some excitement with Project Bridges. So this last Monday, I contacted Cheryl Kresge and reserved MMS, the auditorium, and one of the gyms because I have an idea for some games and activities for the social portion of it. And we got it. We're good for May 10th. And so I actually want to save down that way.
Great.
So I created, and then last Friday, me and Kaden came to the principals, vice principals. They had a meeting, and we told them what was going on, our idea. We showed them the flyer, and the flyer actually has all the information: when, where, what time, our goal, what it's about, and pictures from last year to kind of give an idea of what we're doing, what the kids are doing. And so we got some feedback on what they liked, what they disliked last year, what we need to change, and they're happy about it. And so they're happy to have early time to think about what they're going to do and what they want to talk about their school, their goals and stuff like that. So we're good rolling.
Awesome.
And we will be in contact with them through Mr. Vergara at our high school.
Good.
I just kind of want to talk about what we're doing at the high school right now. Obviously, Got Milk. Was that on? Oh, sorry. Got Milk. It's a student appreciation kind of fun dance. We get a bunch of inflatables, and we're going to get the community involved. We're trying to ask for donations. The entire leadership class is going to go out this upcoming week to all the businesses in town and ask for like a case of water or something small just to give the kids. We are also we're going to collect long sleeve shirts for the field workers, and we are going to donate them to them throughout this week and next week. And so those are just some of the things that we're going to do to give back to the community and get involved. There's also a group of kids that are going to be helping with Kinder Roundup tomorrow at Wahitas. They're going to help the parents and assist them signing up their kids. So we're excited.
Nice. Pretty good. Great. Thank you, guys. So next item is annual board retreat. I just wanted to remind the board that we had talked about bringing agenda items. And so April, the first board meeting in April will be the date that you will need to bring some agenda items for that retreat and some of the specific things that you want to talk about and make sure that are put on the agenda for that day. And so any other questions about our retreat? I believe everybody has the date down and the weekend and times. And so just remember first board meeting in April will be the date that you bring agenda items for that retreat. Was the regional meetings, I'm not sure how many of you have looked through all the regional meetings and dates that are provided. I know that one board member mentioned being interested in the Pasco meeting. If anyone else is interested, please let Sandra know. She needs to register you as soon as possible. So any questions about that?
On those agenda items, you want us to have them to you like the board packet, or do you want to just show up cold turkey with them?
Well, that's a good point.
Actually,
if you just show up with them at the board meeting,
okay,
talk about them then. Yeah. Any questions about the regional meeting? Kate, moving on to Ludokaga school visit. Just some brief comments and what you guys thought. We'll start with our reps. I know that they were able to attend a few of those, an hour or so of that meeting. And so what do you guys think?
We love talking.
Yeah. I don't know. I got to go back to my school. That was exciting. No, I think it's interesting that the kids really like their dual language program because that's something I never got to partake in, and I was like, that would have helped me a long ways in this process. But I think it's really cool that they're excited about it and want to continue it because that's something that could help them in the future and can really change like their lives and how they go through their life in college and school. And it's just really cool that they're excited about it.
I attended Scootney when I was in elementary, and so going into Ludokaga and having this atmosphere of two cultures, and they were both just so present, especially in the library. I thought that was amazing. It was really foreign to me, and I really found it intriguing, and I thought it was wonderful that the kids loved it and were so enticed by it.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, I appreciated the visit. The format and the participation. It started early with the staff meeting. I think there was plenty of comments there. The parents, those that were there, were very involved and had some good ideas, good suggestions. You take it out into the classrooms, and I was very impressed with how the kids are learning Spanish. Some of the stuff they were learning, I had to actually look up in my Spanish dictionary to see what some of the words meant, and then it was off the top of their tongue. They were learning it. So it was very encouraging to see. I was very encouraged with Brooke and her team's demeanor that meeting. Brooke was a drill sergeant, keeping us on track on time. But no, overall, it was a great meeting, and I hope we as a district, I don't want to say put more emphasis on dual language, but not let our foot off the pedal and make sure that we see that program to fruition and throw or allocate any resources necessary to make sure that that's a top-notch program. Because I think it is something that seeing the enthusiasm in the kids and saying that being bilingual was going to help them in their future, you know, from a fifth grader, to me, that was meaning. It was telling that something's being ingrained in them. And I wish more kids had the opportunity, and maybe they will in the future. But just to, as a district, not lack there and make sure that we're keeping that program where it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
Great visit.
So I appreciated I think the staff was very articulate in explaining the challenges of acquiring the Spanish language while still meeting the challenges of, and probably the pressure, I guess, of assessments that are in English. And really, you could feel the frustration of sometimes saying, we really believe in this program, but we're feeling so much pressure to pass the state tests in English. And so it was good to hear that. And I think that I've heard it a lot over the years, but I think it was probably articulated better this time than any other time. It probably came, unfortunately, from frustration for a long time. But I think, you know, I had an opportunity to meet with Dr. Hurst, and I think that I felt that he kind of understood really where they were coming from on that. And really it comes down to us as a board and as a district to say, okay, what do we value here? And sometimes I think if you say we're going to value that language acquisition, you're understanding that we all have to understand, because we have community members are going to ask us. We have to understand that then the assessments aren't going to be the same with those students from Luticaga as they are with students from other schools, and community members are going to ask us, why is that? And we have to be able to know as a board and explain why that is. So I appreciated that, and I appreciated my discussion with Dr. Hurst afterwards. I have a question though for the for the student reps. I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. So it was very obvious that they didn't know who you guys were, right? And so every year, you don't know that? Oh, meaning they didn't know who you were as student reps, right? Student reps of the board. So every year, I think one of the challenges for us as a board is trying to articulate to you guys the importance of representing all students, right? And we talked about that. And I know you have a lot going on and in the high school alone, but that was just a reminder, I think, to me that it's important to make those connections. And even if you just do it once or twice a year, to make those connections at the elementary level and the middle school level, so that at the very least they know, yeah, you guys represent the students with the board. So that's what that was for me. And so hopefully there's still time left in the year that you guys can make some connections there. Because I was a little uncomfortable for you guys when that was asked, and then they're like, huh? You guys have student reps? And I was like, oh. It just showed me that I've been a poor mentor in the past. So, anyway. That's why I passed it up to Tony.
Yeah. I don't have anything else to add. I think it's already been covered. It was a good meeting, and it was good to see the kids. The visits are always rewarding for me.
Awesome. Moving on then, in an effort then to be as transparent as possible as a board, and in our discussions and negotiations with our superintendent as far as his contract, we've requested as a board about 10 or so different superintendent contracts. And so what I'd like to have is just a discussion based on the contracts that have already been turned in to us. I believe there's 5. And so if there's any questions, I appreciate Director Ashton. He was able to put a nice little comparison side by side with all these contracts. And so it was really helpful for me to be able to see all these numbers apart from all the details that the contracts provided. So is there any specific questions that you have about any of the contracts or any of the information that Director Ashton has put together for us?
I was going to do this last night, and I started to, and I thought, Tony's going to have this ready for tomorrow. I'm not going to bother. So thank you as well, Tony. You saved me some time. I don't have any questions, but this is very helpful as I'm looking at what other districts are doing as far as additional bonus structures and exactly what they're including in a superintendent contract, because we were going a little bit blind last year and trying to determine this. And I think some of our resources we were using, I'm just going to say I don't trust that their numbers are right. I was looking at the Kitsap Sun last night, and they actually have this year's posted. Usually it's always a year late, but they have this year's posted. And the ones that we were looking at when we were trying to determine this last year, all were lower this year than the previous year, which makes me think that I'm sure they all didn't get decreased pay. So the previous year probably wasn't even accurate. So to be able to see the actual contracts is, I think, a big deal. And then know what those additional pay is and those kind of things, it breaks it down. So yeah, this is just, I got to wrap my head around it. And then as we meet later and talk about this, there'll be ideas we can bring to the table. So it's good.
Yeah, for me, when I studied them, a couple of things that stood out. One is how the Spokesman Review and the Kitsap Sun, they probably do a decent job of showing total compensation package, but as far as the detail of what money's being paid and why, the contracts themselves, I could see that there's a lot. It's easier to understand where each district is coming from and why they're paying what they're paying, how they're calculating it. Just as an overview from the ones I saw so far, putting my community member hat on, some of these are written, some of these you can tell they're written a lot more vague, and they're written by maybe different lawyers than others. And I like the ones in here. There's some in here that are really straightforward. You can really tell what the superintendent is getting paid, where the money's coming from, why he's getting paid. And other ones, I don't want to pick out any districts in particular, but other ones one in particular took me 45 minutes to figure it out, exactly what they were paying, how they were paying it. I think that does a disservice to the community and to the press and anybody else that's trying to figure out what we're doing in our district to create contracts that are that complicated. And I just don't see the reason for it. So I hope when we get down to our negotiations with Dr. Hurst that me as a board member, I want to keep it as the contract itself easy to understand, so there's not a lot of ambiguity to it. But there is some minor errors on here that I'll fix that I can see as I'm looking at it with fresh eyes. But as the other ones come in, I think it'll be a help to us to do it this way instead of relying on those third-party resources that we have in the past.
So I'm hoping to get, I know that there's a request of about 10 districts that are out there. We have 5. I'm hoping to get 7 or 8 before we really begin to negotiate. And so we'll get into that a little bit more in executive session. So any other questions?
Just to comment, one thing I thought was interesting, because this was a discussion we had that was a big change from our previous superintendent contract to now, is that all but one of these districts, the health insurance benefits was the same as certificated staff. And the other one, they just added in spouse coverage, but none of those health insurance plans or the
Cadillac plans,
they call them. So that kind of just confirmed it, our thinking, and what we had heard when with the consultant was true, that a lot of districts are going away from that.
Great. Well, moving on to item E1 under policy review, and right on time. EL1, is there any recommended changes for EL1 students first?
So you change that one.
Yep. Yeah,
Sums it up.
There's not much you can change there. Going on to E2, EL15, any recommended changes? I know that these next two we changed already late last year. And so item E3, EL19, any recommended changes? Okay. We will, moving on to item F1, there is a need for executive session for approximately 40 minutes for the purpose of staff evaluation and superintendent contract negotiation.